okay lang ba sa inyo na halong Tagalog? Kasi nakita ko dun sa ano niyo pinadala ni Sir Luther mas preferred ninyo na wag straight English no. So, ang topic ko ay basic concepts on the post-harvest physiology and technology of fruits and vegetables. Sabihin, ay, physiology. Ayaw ko niyan. Anyway, papasimplehin ko lang. So, ito yung ating mga learning objectives. To become familiar with the characteristics of fruits and vegetables that affect post-harvest life, lalo na itong mga kinakailangan nyo sa pag-design ninyo ng cold storage facilities, to identify the factors that determine the post-harvest life of fruits and vegetables, and to identify the methods, some of the methods of extending the storage life of fruits and vegetables. So una muna, let us define ano nga ba yung post-harvest horticulture. Pag sinabi kasing post-harvest horticulture, it is a science and technology that deals with harvested perishable crops in their fresh form prior to cooking or food processing. Doon sa horticulture, ang coverage nito yung mga fruit crops, vegetable crops. So, alam niyo ba kung ano to? Anong vegetable crop to? Ito ay carrot, iba-ibang varieties ng carrots. Kasali din dyan yung iba-ibang ornamental crops, no? And isinasali namin yung mga ready to eat, ready to cook fruits and vegetables. Ang tawag dyan noon, nung una ay minimally processed, pero ngayon, ang tawag sa kanila ay fresh cuts, no? Ito yung mga convenience foods. So, ano ba yung post-harvest handling talaga? So, these are the operations or processes crops undergo from harvest up to the time it reaches the consumers, but prior to meal preparation or food processing. So, ang focus ng post-harvest ay yung handling of fresh horticultural perishables. Intact form. Hindi kasali dito ang secondary processing. Yung primary processing, essentially is post-harvest handling. Basta intact yung commodity in its fresh form. No? So there are several steps that or operations that the commodity undergoes from the time it is harvested until the commodity reaches the final consumer. So ito yung parang supply chain. So sinasabing post-harvest, but actually we start at harvesting. No? Harvesting is the start of post-harvest. No? Production ends at harvest and harvesting is the start of post-harvest. So pag-harvest ng commodity, merong mga operations done right at the farm, nagkakaroon ng sorting, field packaging, and then the commodity is transported. Noong unang panahon, kalabaw pa yan. No? Pero ngayon hindi na, medyo high-tech na. The commodities are collected in a collection center o kaya diretso yan sa tinatawag na trading post. Ang tawag doon ay bagsakan, pero hindi dapat gawing bagsakan. Trading post, and then transported, and then loaded and unloaded in a wholesale market. And then from the wholesale market, yung mga Divisoria, yun ang kalimitang wholesale market natin. And then they are transported to the retail market, yung mga wet markets, and then institutional markets like supermarkets. Ano? Pwede rin na kung intended for processing, diretso yan sa mga processing plants. Meron kaming laging pinapakitang slide na sinasabi namin, more were planted than harvested. Because of the increasing population daw, world population is expected to increase by how many billion in 2050? 9 billion. So we need to produce a lot to feed the ever-increasing population ng Pilipinas. Ilang milyon na nga tayo? 110 million. So many mouths to feed. Pero pag dating na ng harvest, no, kaya sinasabi more were planted than harvested kasi there are some problems during production. Inaatake sila ng insekto, ng diseases. Pag meron pang mga calamities, binaha, nawawala. So kung may matira man, yung sinasabing less harvested. Ngayon, kung may na-harvest naman, no, more were harvested than marketed. Pag naman dadali na sa palengke, doon sa field, we do field sorting, maraming nare-reject because of the problems during production. Kaya less were marketed. Pag naman nasa market na, no, depending on the handling conditions, the conditions in the wholesale market, in the retail market, nakakaroon ng mga food losses and waste. No? Ang losses, kaya ganun sinasabi, more were planted than marketed, than harvested, more were harvested than marketed, and then more were marketed than consumed. This is because of the high incidence of post-harvest losses. No? Sabi namin, if a fruit or a vegetable does not reach the consumer, it is as good as if it has not been reached, produced at all. Huwag kayong isipin na kakaiba to na dumaan sa mga tong gates, hindi tong gates. Hindi, no? Kasi ibig sabihin lang yan, from the farm, bago makarating sa market, marami ng losses that are incurred, no? Because of the way we handle the commodity, the way we transport, the way we pack the commodity. In fruits, post-harvest losses, ang average is 28%. For vegetables, the losses are higher than fruits because vegetables are more perishable than fruit crops. So, ano na ba yung mga forms or nature of losses, no? They can be in the form of decay, tulad nito mga cabbages na to, nagkakaroon ng soft rot. More of a problem when production coincides during the rainy season. Tapos, tagbagyuhan pa, hindi mo ibaba from Benguet, ang mga highland vegetables, kasi nakakaroon ng mga landslide. No? And then during this pandemic, problema ang transport. There were delays in transporting the commodity, and when they are produced during the rainy season, ang taas ng incidence ng decay. And then this is the common decay of mango, yung tinatawag na anthracnose. You have brown, eventually magiging black and spots. No? And then this is a form of mechanical damage in banana, no? Which becomes prominent as the fruit reaches the retail market or the consumers. Bananas are very susceptible to mechanical damage, and then you have compression damage in tomatoes because of poor packaging method. Kaya ang taas ng losses after harvest. So, ano ba yung mga forms ng losses? So, mainly mechanical. We can categorize this into mechanical, physiological, and pathological. Mechanical, due to improper handling, poor packaging. Yung mga physiological naman, ito yung examples ay yung chilling injury. Halimbawa, mag-design kayo ng cold room, magawa ng cold room. Pero yung temperature setting ay hindi compatible doon sa requirement ng commodity. No? Kaya nakakaroon ng problema ng tinatawag na chilling injury. Kung ano naman, walang non-refrigerated storage, yung tinatawag na temperature abuse, no? Na masyadong napakataas ang temperature, especially during transport. Yung inter-island transport natin ng fresh produce coming from Mindanao, for example, hindi naman sila kalimitan refrigerated. Later, I will show you a picture of the bananas coming from Mindanao. Pagdating sa Manila na iba-iba na ang itsura. And then the duration of storage, if for example, cold storage will influence also the occurrence of physiological disorders. And then you have pathological, yung diseases, no? Poor handling. Bakit? Bakit pag poor handling will result in decay? Because you create injuries, merong cuts, abrasions, or punctures, which will serve as entry point for microorganisms. And then lack of pre- and post-harvest disease control measures. I will discuss this in detail later pagdating natin doon sa topic ng diseases. No? So ano ba yung contribution ng different players in the supply chain or stakeholders from the grower until the commodity reaches? So from the grower, ang ganda-ganda ng saging, no, sa end ng grower. Pero at each point in the handling chain, kasi ang sistema ng handling natin or marketing is multi-layered. Ang daming pinapasahan ng kamay, no? Especially if the commodity is grown in distant places. For example, Mindanao. Marami tayong commodities coming from Mindanao. Bago yan makarating dyan sa Manila, napakaraming pinagdadaanan ng commodities na yan. So each player in the supply chain contributes to the occurrence of losses, no? Among the players in the supply chain, doon sa case ng grower and then packer, essentially ang losses are due to mechanical damage because of the poor packaging sa field, field packing, poor harvesting method, etc. Pagdating sa transporter, pag malapit lang ang distance ng market, for example, growing areas in Batangas and Cavite and Laguna, tapos Divisoria ang market, or Blumentritt or Nepac Mart, konti lang ang losses. Pero yun nga, if coming from Mindanao or galing sa Ilocos, no? Or even Benguet, no? Ang dami din yung pinagdadaanan. Malaki ang nagiging losses during transport, especially if there are delays. And then the biggest loss occur, or one of the biggest losses occur during marketing, especially doon sa retail market. No? Sa consumer, it is mainly in the form of waste, no? Hindi loss. Kasi magkaiba yung loss doon sa waste. Ang losses, it starts at production and then hanggang doon sa distribution. Pero from retail, no, and then up to the consumer, ang sabi ng FAO dun sa kanilang categorization ng food loss and waste, pag binili mo na sa retailer at tapos nasa bahay mo na at hindi mo na-consume, tinapon mo, nalimutan mong iluto, ayaw mo kumain ng gulay, etc. Yon ay tinatawag na waste. So, why is there a need for post-harvest management? Parang ano lang to, just to reiterate. So, major global challenge now is how to ensure food security for a world-growing population while ensuring long-term sustainable development. Sabi nga ng FAO, 2019 State of Food and Agriculture, food production will need to grow by 70% to feed the world population, which will reach 9 billion by 2050. Daming tao na papakainin. So, what are the challenges? So, focusing on food production alone could not meet the food requirements of growing population kasi nga 10 to 15%, 10 to 50%. Ito yung mga average losses from other countries, no? And then land for cultivation is limited kasi ginagawa ng mga subdivision, yung mga dating agricultural lands, industrial parks, etc. Magkakaroon na rin tayo ng limitation sa water resources, no? And then eventually there will be a limit to productivity. So ano na ngayon ang major challenge? We need to reduce losses because this is a cost-effective means to increase the availability of food at less time. Bakit sinabing less time? So for example, mangga, we are all familiar with mango. From the time of flowering ng mangga hanggang siya ay ma-harvest, it takes about 3 to 4 months, no, depending on the month of flower induction. So within that 3 to 4 months period, may mga pre-harvest losses that are incurred due to pests, due to diseases, mainly mga insect pests yan. No? So losses of about 23% or 15% are incurred, no, during production. And that is within a 3 to 4 month time frame. Ngayon, pag hinarvest mo na yung mangga, how many days will it take for a mango, unripe mango, to the ripe stage? Mga 5-7 days lamang. Within that 5 to 7 day period, pag ang mangga ay grown during the rainy season, yung mga kalimitan nang gagaling sa Mindanao, magagalit ang mga taga Mindanao sa akin, sabihin bulukin ang kanilang mangga. Pero kasi the conditions during production will affect the occurrence of disease. So within that 5 to 7 day period na nahihinog ang mangga, kasabay ng paghinog ng mangga ay ang symptom development, yung brown to black spots on the peel, no, which is favored by the high temperature, high relative humidity because of the rains that occur during production. So, mas mataas ang losses mo within a short period of time after harvest. That is why post-harvest management is gaining attention globally, not only in the Philippines but worldwide. Matagal na actually naman itong loss reduction, pero hindi masyadong napagtutuunan ng pansin. Doon sa Sustainable Development Goal ng FAO, SDG 12.3, specifically 12.3, there is a need to reduce the food loss and waste by 50% in 2030. Ang lapit na noon, no? And medyo mahirap ma-attain yung target na yun. So again, why is there a need for post-harvest management? No? Trade now is liberal. No? Global competition is becoming fiercer. No? We are competing with other countries, not only in the export market, but also within our domestic market. Yung export market natin, no? Ano ba mga ina-export natin na fruits? Nung mga estudyante ko noon na unang sinasagot nila, banana, Cavendish banana, papaya, mango. These are the three major fruit crops that we export. Pero hindi lang tayo nag-export. We export these fruits in many countries. But ang major market natin, in terms of volume, is Hong Kong and China. But in terms of value, it is Japan and Korea because they pay more. No? Eh, masyado naman mahigpit ang kanilang quality requirement. So doon sa mga importing countries na yan, Japan and Korea, hindi lang tayo nag-export. Nag-export din ng mangga ang Thailand, nag-export ang Mexico, Australia. Yun ang mga competitor natin. Eh, ang gaganda din ng mangga nila. At kakaiba ang kulay ng mangga nila. Hindi tulad ng mangga natin na dilalaw ang balat pag nahinog. Ang kanila, meron silang kulay purple, may reddish splash, mga ganyan na masyadong appealing in terms of consumer appeal. So, nagko-compete sa kanila. Within our domestic market, kita yung picture. Ano ba yung kanginang sinabi ni Miss France? Si France nga ba yung taga-DTI, no? Ano daw ang mga fruits na nangangailangan ng cold storage? Yan yung mga imported fruits, no? Citrus fruits, apples, grapes, no? Which we import in large volumes noon pag malapit na yung Christmas and New Year, pero ngayon all throughout the year meron na tayong mga apples, grapes, poncan, etc. because they are cold stored, no? So magkano ang poncan kumpara mo sa mangga pag panahon ng December o month ng December? Ang isang pirasong poncan pwede ka makabili ng 5 piso, no? 7 pesos. Ang mangga during the month of December and January, 1 kilo of mango will cost about 150 to 180 pesos. So halimbawa na lang na meron kang 3 large mango in 1 kilo. So ang isang mangga 50 pesos na, sinong bibili ng mangga na yan kumpara sa poncan na 5 piso? Bibili mo na yung poncan. So yun ang sinasabing we are competing within our domestic market, no? And then meron pa rin sinasabi because of this trade liberalization, meron pa sinasabing food miles, carbon footprint because of the climate change, no? Saan ba raw mas kokonti ang CO2 emission pag ba binarko mo o iniroplano? No? Question ko yan sa inyo. So, ano pa? And then, why is there a need again for post-harvest management? Growing attention on quality, no? Export market, gusto nila halos flawless yung commodities na ine-export natin. Domestic markets, they are now increasingly becoming very conscious, no? Sabi nga natin, consumers buy with their eyes. External appearance of the commodity matters first, no? Saka na yung tikim. Tingin muna bago tikim, no? And then we have the rise of supermarkets. Ang dami ng mga hypermarkets, supermarkets. And what do these markets require from the suppliers? Gusto nila good quality, maganda yung appeal. No? Kaya nga, there is increasing patronage of supermarkets. Kumpara mo yan dyan sa mga commodities natin in wet market. No? Pero hindi naman din nagpapahuli na rin ang mga wet markets natin. No? Conscious na rin sila. So ito yung mangga natin. These are the mangoes that we export to Singapore. This is how mangoes are packed, no, to enhance consumer appeal and to add value, and of course to increase the price of the mangoes during retail. Changing tastes and lifestyles. No? Many women now are in the workforce. Madami ng working women. Marami ng young urban professionals na katulad ninyo. So what do you want in a food? No? You want convenience food. Ayaw mo nang magluto, ayaw na ng nanay na maggayat. No? So sa mga supermarkets, makita nyo mayroon ng ready to eat, ready to cook na mga vegetables, no? Mga stir-fried, pang chop suey, pang pansit, pang nilaga, lahat na lang ng ng ready to eat, no? At saka ready to cook fruits and vegetables. So what do this mean? No? In supermarkets, air conditioned, ang mga commodities are displayed in retail shelves. Na the temperature of the shelves are low to maintain the quality. No? Part of the cold chain. And then growing concern in food safety, kanina ang isang concern, may TWG on food safety. No? Ayaw nating mamatay agad. Kaya marami nagpapatronize na ng organic fruits and vegetables. Pero dapat yan, pag nag-label ng certified organic, be sure that the production system is really certified as organic. And then maraming food certification systems, yung mga tinatawag na good agricultural practices, good manufacturing practices, ISO, etc. No? Meron tinatawag diyang HACCP, no? This is mainly for pwede din to sa sa fresh fruits and vegetables. Yung hazard analysis critical control point. You identify where in the point or step in the chain na nagkakaroon ng contamination ng microbial or physical or chemical hazard. No? And then you control that step. So essentially the goal of post-harvest handling is to maintain the freshness, the safety, wholesomeness of fruits and vegetables to provide high-quality produce to consumers. Kung paano siya hinarvest, kung gaano siya kaganda hinarvest, gandun din dapat ang itsura niya pag naandun na sa retail market. No? So ito yung yung pre-test nyo, di ba, may tanong sa akin galing yun. Are harvested fruits and vegetables dead or alive? So almost kayo, almost, di ba yun? 90, 80, parang 90% no, Sir Luther, ang nakakuha na they are still alive. Just like us, no? Fresh produce, they're alive. They breathe, no? Parang tayo, humihinga tayo, we use up oxygen. We release carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The commodity releases heat during respiration na sinasabi, which is a physiological process. Heat is also evolved, no? And then the commodity, because it has a high moisture content, it loses moisture. Eventually, it can get sick, and then eventually it will die. O yung tinatawag na senescence. So parang tao, no? So ang target natin is to slow down the process of aging and eventually pigilan kung maaari ang kanilang death, no? So ito na tayo sa physiology, sa post-harvest physiology. So what are the characteristics of perishables affecting post-harvest life? They are energy requiring. Energy is in the form of ATP. No? Hindi man bago sa inyo. So this is the metabolic energy that is generated from respiration to maintain a high degree of organization. This energy, this metabolic energy, is the one that is being used up by the commodity for it to sustain its post-harvest life. No? Pero kailangan ma-retard natin ang rate ng respiration kahit kailangan ng ATP kasi mabilis ang depletion ng food reserve ng commodity pag mabilis ang respiration rate. And then the commodity undergoes continual state of change. This is a program change, parang tayo, no? For example, mango, banana, papaya. Harvest mo sila, mature stage, unripe. Sila ay eventually mahihinog, no? And then mag-age, magiging overripe, mangungulubot, and then magsesenes or eventual death, no? We can only slow down these program changes in the commodity, but we cannot really prevent the eventual death of the commodity. So ano lang to, parang konting review lang. So this is the general formula or the equation ng respiration. So you have the food reserves, no? Ito ay parang simple carbohydrate. This is glucose, a simple carbohydrate, no? It uses up oxygen. The commodity uses up oxygen. It releases carbon dioxide. Water is also produced. And then this is the metabolic energy, the ATP, and then this the heat, no? Ito ang importante in the design. The heat generated during respiration is important in your design of the cold room and other post-harvest operations. So these are the different substrates na kinukonsumo ng commodity, no? Actually, ito yung chemical composition ng inyong mga commodities. Meron kang starch, sugars, meron kang mga acids, meron kang mga fats and lipids, just like in avocado. And then you have proteins, no, in leguminous crops, lalo dun sa seeds, no. And this is the amount of heat that is evolved, 686 kilocalories per mole of glucose. So sabi niya, ano ba yan? Nosebleed yata yan. Ito lang yung pinapakita. Bakit kailangan ang respiration rate? This is a necessary process, no? Kasi yung ATP that is generated, ito yung response, this is needed, no? Itong ATP doon sa mga flavor changes, development of aroma, no? Kung nag-aamoy mangga na siya, nag-aamoy saging na siya, ginagamit yan sa tinatawag na carotenogenesis, yung pagpalit ng kulay ng flesh or ng balat ng mangga, no? Or ng papaya or any commodity that eventually ripens, no? For normal ripening. Kailangan dito sa respiration, you need sufficient oxygen para normal ang metabolic processes. Ngayon, there are cases wherein oxygen becomes limiting or very low, no? And that would lead to production of acetaldehyde and ethanol, tinatawag na anaerobic respiration. That will lead to off odor or flavor, alcoholic odor and flavor, tissue breakdown, and abnormal ripening. Siguro minsan naka-encounter na kayo ng ganito. Na for example, yung commodity na masyadong nakulob, matagal na nakalagay sa plastic bag, no? Pag inyong inilabas na ay parang amoy fermented, no? Yun ay dahil kinulang ng oxygen. So this is the rate of respiration. The rate of respiration is affected by the physiological status of the commodity, no? At saka maturity. So merong mga very high, yung mga immature and actively growing organs. Ano ba yung mga immature and actively growing organs, no? Yan yung asparagus, baby corn or young corn, ang taas ng kanilang respiration rate. Kaya mataas ang kanilang heat production. Kaya ang ginagawa sa kanila, no, dito sa commodities na yan, we export asparagus, no. So ang ginagawa ng mga companies para ma-retard ang process ng respiration, ang ginagawa na kinukul agad nila yon, tinatawag na pre-cooling. They're using cold water, no, or yung iba yung forced air pre-cooling. So ang moderate, yung fruits and fruit vegetables. Pag sinabing moderate, kung gusto niyo ba malaman yung moderate, yan yung mga about 70 to 100 milligram CO2 per kilogram hour. Yung mga immature and actively growing organs, umaabot yan ng 300 milligrams CO2 ang production. Ang low respiring commodities are the dormant organs. So ano ba yung mga dormant organs na yan? Ito yung mga nuts at saka yung mga dates. Very low kasi ang moisture content pati ng mga commodities na to. And then onion, garlic, no, and also potato. very low or low ang kanilang respiration rate, no? Kasi itong mga onion and garlic, no? Pag napansin nyo, kahit you keep them at ambient condition, no? Kahit mga 3 buwan, pag fully mature, hindi sila mag-i-sprout. No? Lalo na pag inilagay mo sa cold storage facility because you retard the rate of respiration. So ito yung I got this from an old paper, old literature, kay MacGregor din yata ito. So ito yung heat production ng commodities as affected by temperature, no? So pag mataas ang temperature, mataas ang heat production. Mapansin niyo yung onion, ang baba ng kanyang heat production, no? Pag 10 degrees, ito lang. Pag mas mataas yun, 86 to 116 kilocalories per ton per day. No? Sweet corn, napakataas niya. Kasi sweet corn or baby, ano yan immature itong sweet corn na to. No? Ito yung ating yung tinatawag na green corn. No? Ang taas din ng kanyang respiration rate. No? Kaya mapansin nyo, yung sweet corn, pag bagong harvest, ang tamis niya. Kasi mataas yung kanyang sugars. Pero pag yan kinabukasan na hindi mo agad na ilaga, siya ay tumatabang na. Kasi yung mga sugars niya, they are converted na into starch. Then, at saka, ang taas ng kanyang respiration, nakukonsume na yung mga sugars. So, ano ba yung applications nitong high rate of respiration? Ito yung sa pre-cooling. Yun nga, asparagus, baby corn, they are immediately pre-cooled, no? Right at the farm to, ano ba yun? Para bumaba agad yung field heat na sinasabi. You need this in calculating the refrigeration load. In the design of packages, gaano pa kailangan gaano karaming butas ang kailangan mo. And then during transport, you need ventilation. So yun ang yung mga applications. Ang isa pang physiological process in harvested fruits and some vegetables like tomato, no, na nahihinog, ay yung tinatawag na ethylene production. Ethylene is a phytohormone for plant growth regulation. This is regulator. This is naturally produced by the commodity. And ito yung effects ng ethylene. It is responsible for the ripening of fruits. Kaya nahihinog ang mga prutas. Pag nahihinog, tumataas ang ethylene production. Ethylene is responsible for the sprouting ng root, tuber, and bulb crops. Kaya hindi dapat magkakaroon ng mixed storage ng ethylene sensitive and ethylene producing commodities in a cold room. It is also responsible for the abscission of leaves, florets, and petals. No? Pag napahalo, kung bago mag Valentine's Day o kaya ay yung All Souls Day, nagte-temporary storage ng mga bulaklak. No? Pag nahaluan yan, ang cold room, ng commodities that produce high levels of ethylene, paglabas ng bulaklak doon sa cold storage, taglagan ang kanyang mga florets, no? Yung mga petals, ganun din yung dahon. No? Loss of greenness doon sa mga leafy vegetables, and even in broccoli, no? Nawawalang greenness, toughening ng asparagus, softening of melons, yung mga pakwan, flavor changes such as bitterness in carrots. Pag napahalo siya sa ethylene-producing crop, nagiging bitter ang carrot. Diba ang carrot medyo matamis yan? And then occurrence of physiological disorders. Ang isang example ay sa bulaklak, yung carnation. Carnation can be cold stored. Familiar kayo sa carnation. Pag ini-store yung carnation, yan ay pala bud stage, no? Pag napahalo yan sa mga commodities nagpo-produce ng ethylene, hindi nabubuka yung carnation. Ang tawag doon na sa disorder na yon ay sleepiness. Tulog na lang siya yung carnation. So what are the conditions that increase ethylene production? Stage of maturity, no? Physiological status. Pag nahihinog, ang taas ng ethylene production. High temperature enhances ethylene biosynthesis. Presence of external ethylene in the environment. Kita nyo yan, no? Yung mga smoke coming from cigarettes, smoke from burning organic materials, engine exhaust, meron yang ethylene na kasama dun sa mga smoke. And that will enhance or hasten ripening. Stress and mechanical damage, no? The way we pack the commodities, these are cauliflower. Kahit anong commodity, kaing ang kalimitang lalagyan natin o rattan baskets na malalaki, and they're overpacked to reduce the transport cost kasi minsan ang bayad per container basis, hindi on a weight basis. Ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na this is a dry van. This bananas, yan ay Saba, Latundan. Halo-halo yan. Saba, Latundan, Lakatan, coming from Mindanao. Bulk transport, no? Dry van. So anong nangyayari? During transport, masyado mataas ang temperature. That high temperature will enhance respiration rate. It will enhance ethylene production. So anong nangyayari? Nagkakaroon ng premature ripening and over-ripening. Tapos nagkakaroon pa ng problema ng tinatawag na green soft disorder. Malambot yung saging pero berde pa siya at hindi na siya mahihinog eventually kasi mataas ang ethylene, no? Tapos bumababa yung oxygen within the van, no? Kaya nagkakaroon ng green soft disorder. Ang ginagawa ng mga yung nagsiship from Nasipit Port, no? Doon sa Agusan. Hindi ko lang kung ganun din sa Davao. Nilalagyan niya nila ng bloke-blokeng yelo. Hindi sila nagre-refrigerated transport. Bloke-bloke na yelo, nakabalot sa sako, tapos may ipa. Nakalagay doon sa may, sa may front, sa medyo middle ng van para bumaba ang temperature. No? So, may mga parang respiration rate. Commodities also vary in terms of their ethylene production. Meron mga very low ethylene producers. Yan yung mga asparagus, grapes, leafy vegetables, fruit crops, cut flowers. Low 0.1 to 1 microliter per kilogram. Yan yung mga melon, cucumber, pineapple, watermelon. Moderate yung mga nahihinog na commodities. Very high, avocado, papaya, and kiwi fruit. High pala yun. And then very high, more than 100 microliter passion fruit. Kaya kung gusto niyo magpahinog ng saging, samahan niyo ng passion fruit. No? Ang taas ng kanyang ethylene production. Okay. Ay, sorry. So, ano pang characteristics? Commodities have high water content, 80 to 95%. No? And they're implicated in the following responses. Pag na-reduce ang water content of commodity, this will result in wilting in the case of leafy vegetables, no? Shriveling in the case of fruit commodities, yellowing, naninilaw sila, toughening in the case of leguminous crops, in the case of asparagus, loss of vitamin C for most crops, and then it will eventually lead to softening kasi hindi na turgid. And also it will lead to a loss, eventually it will lead to a loss in marketable weight of the commodity. Ay, hindi na natin take upin to. Masyado na ito sabihin nyo naman yan, no split. So, mataas ang moisture content ng commodity. So, they are in liquid form while inside the commodity. So, ang avenues for water loss, yung mga parts outside the commodity, para yung mga pores natin, stomates or stomata, no, yung mga lenticels, no, yung cuticle. So paglabas niya yan in vapor state na. So dito sa ibabaw ng commodity, meron diyang parang boundary layer, no? Na pag nawala yung boundary layer na yan, parang nagre-regulate yan ng rate of gas exchange, rate of water loss, no? Pag nawala yun, ang bilis ng rate ng water loss. So for example, pag masyadong mahangin, itong boundary layer na yan, no, ay na-reduce. Kaya mabilis ang rate ng water loss. Maraming disadvantages or undesirable effects ng water loss, pero meron din naman siyang benefits. No? It helps dissipate the heat of respiration. Di ba sabi niya, during respiration is a product ay heat. No? So if you have a commodity within the surrounding environment, that heat that is evolved by the commodity, yun ang ginagamit para mag-evaporate ang water. No? So that will lead to a cooling effect. And then it also helps reduce damage due to handling. No? In the case of leafy vegetables, they're harvested very early in the morning. No? Kasi itatransport pa yan. No? Pero very early in the morning, the cells are very turgid, kaya ang daling masira. So ang ginagawa dyan, inaalaw muna ng about 1 hour na mag-lose ng moisture para kahit ipack yung commodity, hindi madaling masisira ang mga dahon. So ano pang characteristic ng commodity? They respond to the environment. Temperature extremes, very high temperature, nakakaroon ng heat stress. Pag suboptimal naman yung temperature, not the recommended temperature, it leads to chilling injury like this one, the black heart of pineapple. If they're stored at about 10 degrees Celsius, and this is encountered by some exporting companies, nakakaroon ng ganitong disorder. Ito yung severe form, pero yung iba minsan mga brown spots, or endogenous brown spots. It responds also to the gaseous environment. The levels of oxygen, carbon dioxide, and ethylene in the atmosphere will affect the post-harvest life of the commodity or the occurrence of physiological disorders like this internal breakdown in mango, yung mga starchy air pockets doon sa flesh ng fruit. Relative humidity will affect also the post-harvest life, and then the light. Ito patatas to, yung green patches on the peel, yung tinatawag na greening ng potato. If the stored potato is exposed to light for extended period, nakakaroon ng metabolic change, nagpo-produce ng tinatawag na solanine. This is an alkaloid, and this is a health risk. Pag masyado ka maraming nakain na ganyan, delikado. And then, other characteristics, the commodity responds or is subject to injury, kalimitan. Ito ang problema natin, yung rough handling, kalimitan binabagsak ang commodity. This is an example of a mango. Mango at the green stage, akala ng mga handler, it can withstand any amount of rough handling. So the damage may not be apparent externally. Pero pag nahinig yung mangga na yan, minsan may mga portion na hindi nahihinog, the peel remains green, at pag binuksan mo yan, merong mga white starchy areas na maasim, sometimes fermented. And that is an indication of bruising that occurs at the early stage of handling change due to rough handling. Pag-harvest ng papaya, harvest and catch, galing nila, para mga baseball players yung mga yan. Sa yan? Sa South Cotabato. Method of handling, binubuhos ang mangga pagka-harvest, yung mga containers natin, yung mga sako, grabing ipaghagisan. These are mangoes packed in cartons. This is Mindanao, pagod na sila kuya. So walang upuan, uupo na lang dyan. So kaya pagdating ng mangga dito sa atin sa Manila, galing Mindanao, marami ng mga may compression, mga ganyan. Ito kulang ng upuan. Wala nang space doon sa sasakyan para sa mga kargador. Diyan na lang sila nakaupo. So what happens to the commodity, pag may damage, or injury, ang bilis ng breakdown ng cells, ang bilis ng respiration rate and ethylene production. So ang bilis ng kanilang deterioration. So ito yung mga physical forms of physical wounding, friction, impact, compression. Ito yan. Ito yung mangga na nakikita niyo sa palengke pag masyadong rough ang handling, ang saging, pag napagdaganan, pasan ko yung mundo. This is a 20-footer container van, a dry van. It can contain about mahigit na 3 tonelada yung level weight namin na saging. So yung mga bananas, pag kahit verde pa yan, nagkakaroon na sila ng ganyan mga abrasions on the peel. Ito pa yung ibang forms ng damage. So pag nahinog yan, please buy me na lang, reduce price yan. Ito hindi ko na masyadong didiscusin na anong nangyayari sa commodity. Basta importante, any form of damage will increase the rate of respiration. It will increase the rate of ethylene production, by as much as 20 times. Hindi lang at 20 times, minsan 50 times ang increase. Yung unang binigay ni topic ni Sir Luther sa akin, yung microorganisms. Iniano ko na, sinali ko na rin. Commodities are susceptible to attack by pathogens and insects. Because the commodities are bag full of nutrients, they are also needed by microorganisms. Kaya mapansin nyo, in the case of mango, papaya, banana, pag sila ay unripe, hindi nyo kita yung decay, Pero pag nag-uumpisa ng mahinog, lalo hinog na yung mga commodities na yan, lalo mangga at papaya, dyan nyo na makikita yung mga decay, Kasi ayaw din nila siguro ng maasim na mangga, ng walang lasa na papaya. Kaya pag nahihinog, doon din sila maglalaba sa ano. So this is soft rot naman. Sa vegetables, kalimitan, ang diseases are mainly due to bacteria. So the conditions that will favor disease development, you have the environment. The conditions in the environment should be favorable: temperature, relative humidity, rainfall pattern, doon sa pre-harvest. Post-harvest level, ganun din. Temperature, condensate, or free moisture in the environment, the levels of gases. And then the pathogen or the disease-causing organism should be virulent. It should be capable of inciting infection. And the host should be susceptible. No? The susceptibility of the host is determined by the genetic makeup of the commodity. So, yun yung mga characteristics, no? Yung essentially yung physiological aspect ng post-harvest sanding. So, how do we maintain the quality and reduce losses? You should know your commodity. Yun nga yung diniscuss natin kanina. Ano yung characteristics ng horticultural produce? What are the factors that affect the changes in post-harvest quality? Medyo na-discuss na natin ng konti, yung mga environmental factors. And then what are the some of the post-harvest interventions that we can do to maintain the quality and reduce losses? So just like the triangle of interaction with regards disease development, ganun din pagdating sa post-harvest physiology. So you have this post-harvest triangle of interaction. The two sides of the triangle are the physical-chemical environment, temperature, RH, gases, the wind, chemicals that we apply. And then you have the biological environment. Ito yung mga disease-causing organisms, fungi and bacteria. And then you have insects, no, that attack the commodities or develop after harvest. And then you have rodents, yung mga cold storage facilities pag hindi maganda, or even the dry storage facilities pag hindi maganda ang sanitation, ay problema ang daga. Hindi lang daga, may ipis pa. Nung kami nag-evaluate sa cold storage facilities ng onions, Diyos ko, may ipis. Kasi mixed commodity, no? Merong alamang, may tuyo, dying. And then man, no, man is part of the biological environment because the way we handle the commodity determines its post-harvest lifetime and handling. And then the commodity forms the base of the triangle. Commodity kasi iba-iba yung kanyang morphological characteristics, anatomical structures, chemical composition, yung kanyang physical properties. You will have a separate lecture on the physical properties of the commodity, yung lalo yung ano ba yun? Electrical properties, physical properties, mechanical properties, etc. So all of these make up the genetic composition of the commodity that determine post-harvest life. So yung response to commodity, mapasin nyo, iba-iba. Kasi depende yan doon sa organ. Organs are the leaves, the flowers, the stems, the roots, no? So in the case of the leaves, like lettuce and cabbage, they turn yellow. Ang flower buds, essentially yung broccoli nyo, cauliflower, these are flower buds, no? So they open, they turn yellow. Yung broccoli, pag yan, di ba green ang broccoli? Pag yan yung nag-yellow, ibig sabihin, nag-o-open na yung mga florets, no? And that is an indication of deterioration. And then stem, potato and ginger, these are modified stems. They are rhizomes, no? They are still dormant. When harvested at mature stage, these organs are still dormant. But when the dormancy ceases, nag-end na yung dormancy, they eventually sprout. Merong mga buds kasi mga yan, they will grow. And then immature fruits like cucumber and eggplant, they shrivel. Fruit picked unripe but fully mature, they ripen. And then you have the leaf plus stem plus root, yung mga bulb crops like onion. Onion is a modified leaf, no? Both onion and garlic are dormant organs. Pag nag-end na rin yung dormancy, they will eventually sprout and magpo-form din siya ng root, yung rooting. Yun nandun sa base noong onion and garlic. So just to show, bakit nga ba ganun? Akala natin yung banana ay makapalang balat. No? Kasi makapalang balat naman ng saging. Pero kahit makapal yung kanyang balat, ang fruit wall niya, yung outer, they are essentially soft and they are susceptible to damage. No? Kaya kita niyo yung rough handling na yan ng saging. No? Kaya yung saging, ito yung pang domestic market. No? Ito yung for export market. This is how they pack the Cavendish bananas. No? Kasi, di ba nga soft fruit wall, very susceptible to abrasion yan. No? Yung, pag walang liner, this is a polyethylene bag, a thin polyethylene bag with holes. Pag Japan and Korea ang market, may mga butas yan. Itong liner ito ginagamit to prevent box burn. Kasi pag nagkaroon ng friction between the banana peel and the box, nakakaroon ng burning, nakakaroon ng ang tawag doon, discoloration on the peel. Kung hindi man, tapos in between, meron niyang mga polystyrene foam. May liner yan, may foam para din walang abrasion. And then, bakit nga ba nagkakaroon ng dagta ang mangga, nagkakaroon ng staining, nagkakaroon ng brown patches on the peel ang citrus kasi meron yung mga oil glands. Madali silang ma-damage. No? Kaya mapansin nyo, minsan yung mga ibang citrus, yung mga ponca na bibili natin, ba nakabalot yan individually? No? Doon sa plastic na manipis. Isa is to prevent damage. Tapos yung iba naman, may ano pa yan, may polystyrene na net para hindi rin ma-damage yung oil glands, para hindi mag-produce ng ganitong brown patches on the peel. Ang mangga naman, latex, no, ang nagiging problema. Nagkakaroon ng latex staining because during packaging, during handling, natatanggal yung stem na natitira. Tapos may fresh latex that will ooze out from the stem. No? Ang rambutan, ito malaking challenge sa inyo paano i-prevent ang browning ng rambutan. Kasi kahit nasa cold room yan, nagbabrown din ang rambutan. Yung mga buhok, yung spin turns, kasi ang dami niyang avenues for water loss ang rambutan. Hindi ko na-discussin yung mga yung gaano karami ang buhok ng isang rambutan, yung spin turns. Pinagawa namin yun sa estudyante. No? Pinabilang namin kaya gaano karami itong mga buhok na yan at bakit sila madaling mag-brown no, kumpara doon sa pinaka-peel kasi maraming buhok, 200 to 400. Marami siyang trichome, marami siyang stomates, etc. etc. So lahat ng avenues for water loss naandoon sa rambutan. Ganon din naman ang leafy vegetables, ang bilis nilang mag-wilt kasi ang dami din nilang mga openings sa ganyan. Marami silang pores no, kumpara sa saging. Ang Chinese cabbage, they will wilt faster than mustard and pechay. No? Kasi marami din silang mga avenues for water loss like the trichomes, yung fine hairs doon sa Chinese cabbage. Yung pisan masakit yan, parang natutusok. Ang pechay, wala siyang trichomes. And then yung mga leafy vegetables, you will notice, yung mga tips nila, mas madali silang mag-wilt at saka mag-turn brown kasi marami silang mga pores, marami mga ganyan doon sa mga dulo ng dahon. Kaya mas madali silang mag-wilt. No? And then the surface area to volume ratio determines the reactive area for respiration, transpiration, and penetration of chemicals. And these are some of the generalizations. The leaves have the largest surface area to volume ratio. The smaller the commodity, the larger the surface area to volume ratio. So if you have a poncan and you have a pomelo, pomelo is suha or lukban. Yung poncan, yung mga dalanghita, yung usual na poncan, yung orange. So between the two, alin kaya ang mas mabilis ang water loss? Kung ito'y face-to-face, ang sarap magtawag eh. So mabilis mag-water loss itong mas maliit itong poncan, lalo na kalamansi. No? And then the more the commodity approaches a sphere, the less its surface area to volume ratio. So if you have a chili pepper and a bell pepper, mas mabilis ang chili pepper. So yun yung mga some of the commodity factors no, or internal factors within the commodity that determines post-harvest life. So ano naman yung mga pre-harvest and post-harvest pre-harvest factors? No? Sa pre-harvest, kasali ulit ang commodity, yung genetic influence. No? Ito essentially mainly on the quality and storability. Meron tayo iba-ibang klase ng pakwan, iba-ibang kulay ng pakwan. The cultural management that are done, no, practices, nutrient management, pag mas maganda ang pagpapakain mo, mas malusog. Water management, pest management, ito, no, importante ito kasi may mga diseases that are not apparent, that are incurred during production, pero hindi mo kita pag harvest, makikita mo lang pag mahihinog na. And then special practices, ito, describe, this is dragon fruit, no? Ito, tapos may mga palawid siya. Dito nagpo-fruit sa dulo. And then dragon fruit is susceptible to fruit fly infestation. Meron yung mga binubutas siya ng fruit fly. Para sa mangga, binabag ang mangga para hindi siya atakehin ng fruit fly. Tsaka ganun din. To provide a physical barrier between the insect and the disease-causing organisms. Environmental factors, temperature, relative humidity, atmospheric composition, and light. Bakit nga ba may pinakitang orange dito? No? Dito sa atin, ang oranges, pag nag-mature, hindi siya kulay orange kasi mataas ang temperature natin dito. Siya ay kulay verde. Pero in sub-temperate or subtropical countries, Korea, Japan, especially in the US and other temperate countries, pag nagmamature na yung oranges nila, kulay orange. Yun ang orange talaga. No? Kasi the temperature affects the synthesis of carotenoids. Low temperature enhances carotenoid synthesis. Kaya yung may nag-grow noon ng orange, perante orange sa Nueva Vizcaya. Malamig na doon doon sa Nueva Vizcaya, yung growing area. Pero hindi pa rin niya magawang orange o Kaya ang ginawa niya, ilagay niya sa cold storage facility para ma-degreen, tinatawag na degreening. Pero hindi niya na-attain yung talagang orange coloration. This just to transpiration yun. No? So what are the factors that affect the respiration? So temperature. Kaya nga sinasabi, the lower the temperature, the slower the rate of metabolism. Kasi the rule of thumb, you double the rate of metabolic processes like respiration for every 10-degree rise in temperature. Pero wag nating isipin na the lowest temperature is the best. Hindi. Kasi may mga requirements ang commodities. Kaya nga yung kanina siguro isa sa constraint when it comes to vegetables and even fruit crops. Iba-iba yung kanilang temperature requirement ng iba-ibang iba-ibang klase ng fruit, iba-ibang klase ng vegetables. Hindi tulad yan ng mga meat o i-freeze mo lang. Okay na yun. Ang ganun din, iba din ang requirement ng fruits and vegetables grown in temperate countries versus grown dito sa tropical countries kasi iba yung kanilang pre-harvest environmental conditions. So you slow down the rate of respiration through temperature management. One is pre-cooling, you reduce immediately the field heat, and then low temperature storage. This is just to show, itong graph na to is just to show the effect of temperature on the days to rate of deterioration of the commodity. So the higher the temperature, the faster will be the less, fewer days, for it to deteriorate compared with if you have very low temperature. So fresh produce keep best at low temperature, but some catch cold. So for tropical fruits and vegetables, this is usually the range, 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, to prevent the occurrence of chilling injury. So, paano mo ma-manage ang rate ng respiration through the cold chain? Pag sinabi kasing cold chain, dapat chain talaga, So, it should start with pre-cooling. Pre-cooling is the start of the cold chain. And then, after pre-cooling, reduce the field heat, refrigerated transport. Kasi pag ilalagay mo yan sa van na hindi pre-cooled, masyado naman na magiging load ng reefer van mo, ang tagal bumaba ng temperature. And then refrigerated transport, if you will store the commodity, then you have cold storage. And then you have refrigerated retail shelves. Itong mga nakikita natin sa supermarket. No? This is one form of pre-cooling. Forced air cooling. No? You need a fan, no? To blow the cold air within the stock of the commodity. You have refrigerated trucks, refrigerated vans, cold storage facility, and then refrigerated display shelf. So yung kanina nga, yung sinasabi na mahirap sa fruits and vegetables, iba-iba yung kanilang temperature and relative humidity requirements. So may tinatawag na compatibility when it comes to this temperature and relative humidity. So ano ba pwede mong pagsamahin? No, so 0 to 2 degrees Celsius, high relative humidity, yan, asparagus, broccoli, cabbage, carrot, cauliflower, celery, sweet corn, lettuce, and sweet peas, no? Pero pagdating naman dito sa mga fruit crops like grapes, apple, longan, and lychee, 0 to 2 degrees Celsius also, pero hindi mo masyadong kailangan ang napakataas na relative humidity na abot ng 100% kasi magpa-favor na rin yun ng disease development. No? Leeks, alam niyo, it is a vegetable crop. Okay, dapat sa kanya ay 90 to 95. Then group 2, about 10 degrees Celsius, relative humidity of 85 to 90%. Ito yung mga beans, cucumber, eggplant, okra, potato, pepper, calamondin or calamansi, pomelo or suha, and tamarind. And then for most tropical commodities, 13 to 15 degrees Celsius, relative humidity also of 85 to 90%. This is to reduce the rate of moisture loss from the commodity. So halos lahat ng tropical fruits and vegetables natin, ito yung recommended. Minsan pwede siyang bumaba ng 10, pero hindi dapat extended ang holding period. Isa pa yung compatibility when it comes to storage. Ano ba yung mga ethylene producer? These are the apples, nahihinog na saging, avocado, it produces a high level of ethylene. Yung melons or melon, mango, papaya, passion fruit, and tomatoes. Ethylene sensitive, yan. Yung mga vegetable crops. No? Tsaka yung potted plants. Watermelon. No? Ang watermelon, ano yan? Magiging iba yung texture. No? Hindi siya puputla. Yung minsan, iba na pumuputla. No? Hindi dahil nabagsak. No? Because of ethylene. At saka iba yung texture niya. Parang nagiging sagi. Hindi na full ang pagka-flesh niya. Also, compatibility when it comes to odor. The odor produced by apples can be absorbed by onions. Okay lang onion. No? Onion na may onion ka na, may apple ka pa. And then you have cabbage, carrots, and celery. So grapes fumigated with sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide is used to control decay. No? During shipment kasi, merong mga tinatawag na slow release sulfur dioxide pads, yung mga nasa ibabaw yan ng karton, ng grapes, no, to control decay in grapes during shipment, refrigerated shipment, but still you need to then still add sulfur dioxide pads, no, and it can be absorbed, itong sulfur dioxide can be absorbed by other fruits and vegetables. Nagpalitan na yung onion. Yung onion, ano yan. Essentially, onion, hindi naman ganun kabaho. Wag lang masusugatan yung onion. So, pwede ma-absorb ng celery, ng pears. Green pepper, pwede ma-absorb ng pinya. No? And then ginger. Pag nasugatan ng ginger, talagang labas ang amoy niya. And it can be absorbed by eggplant. So, what are the causes of shortened storage life? No? Sprouting. If you do not control or regulate or maintain the desired temperature level at saka relative humidity. So yan kasi dapat mababa ang relative humidity, about 65 to 70% during cold storage. Ang temperature about 0 to 3 degrees Celsius. Pag hindi maganda ang conditions during storage, sa halip na tumubo ang trader, kasi you store onions during the peak season, mura yung onion. I-store mo yan for about 6 months. Pag inilabas mo, mahal na ng onion. No? Kaya essentially onions are cold stored, no? Pero pag hindi nga maganda ang temperature RH, yan ang mangyayari. Yung onion ang tutubo, hindi yung nag-store, no? And then you have ripening. You can have disease development. and then in the case of flowers, the wilting. And then chilling injury, ito ang dapat ingatan. No? The fruits will fail to ripen. Yung light na during cold storage in the case of potatoes. And then ito din chilling injury, yung mga sunken spots na yan, you call that pitting, and then you have field discoloration. Chilling injury can be overcome by temperature conditioning. Gradually, you reduce the temperature until you reach the desired low temperature. Intermittent warming, controlled atmosphere, and controlled atmosphere, may pakita ko ano yun. And then breeding for resistant lines. They did that already for pineapple, pero hindi ko alam kung commercially meron na. And then chemical treatments. No? So in cold storage, no, dapat ito yung dapat yung ma-manage. You should only store excellent quality commodity kasi garbage in, garbage out. Stock the containers properly. There should be spaces in between containers to allow the cold air to circulate within the stock, not only around the stock. Hygiene and sanitation, hindi dapat ganito ang cold storage. No? Yung sabi ko sa inyo, napuntahan namin, hindi naman lahat. No? Talagang, andun yung nabubulok, andun yung sprout, may ipis, no? And then, maintain the desired temperature and relative humidity, and then you determine the compatibility of the stored produce. And then respiration rate can also be slowed down, no, by manipulating the levels of oxygen and carbon dioxide, pwedeng combination. High oxygen, low CO2, it hastens respiration. Pero if you reduce the level of oxygen, you increase the level of carbon dioxide, you slow down the rate of respiration. But you should maintain the desired level, no? Kasi pag masyadong bumaba ang oxygen, no, it will lead to anaerobic respiration. Magkakaroon ka ng mga ganitong mga disorders, no? Magkakaroon ng design yung mangga. This is potato. Nagkaroon din ng black heart ang potato because of the very low oxygen level in the storage environment. So, atmosphere modification can be a supplement to refrigeration. Kung para mo yung post-harvest life, no? For example, at 20 degrees, no? In air, ganito lamang, ilang days lamang. No? Relative fix yata ito. If you combine it with modified atmosphere storage, you almost double. No? And then if you have optimum temperature, for example, 10 degrees or 12 degrees Celsius, no? If it is in air, mga 3 weeks halimbawa. But if you combine it with modified atmosphere, pwede yung umabot yan ng isang buwan. So, kasi ganito yung rate ng deterioration, no? As affected by atmosphere modification. Ito courtesy of Dr. Yevtenko. So, ano ba nangyayari? If you put the commodity inside a plastic bag, yan yung isang form ng atmosphere modification. You have the commodity that is respiring. It uses up the oxygen inside the plastic bag. No? So, ano mangyayari? Bababa ang oxygen. And then, carbon dioxide is being produced. So, ano mangyayari sa carbon dioxide? Tataas ang carbon dioxide. No? So, that will lead in a reduction in respiration rate. Ito tinatawag na product-generated atmosphere. But there are several methods of modifying the atmosphere within a storage environment or a container. No? You use semi-permeable plastic films tulad nito. These are solo papayas. No? This is with modified atmosphere packaging, extended storage. Ito nahinog na agad yung papaya. Surface coating or edible coatings or waxing. No? Can also modify the atmosphere actively by vacuum packaging. Ganito yung ginagawa sa mga bananas that are being exported, Cavendish bananas that are being exported to the Middle East, refrigerated transport, pero supplemented with vacuum packaging to reduce the level of oxygen kasi for Middle East shipment, it takes about 23 to 28 days, no? Depending on the port of call, no? Kaya pag mahinugan ang saging, bawal mahinog ang saging during transport. So dito ang ginagawa na, they evacuate the air. The carton is lined with plastic bag without perforations. And then they suck the air out. No? Hindi lang yung oxygen ang nare-reduce, even the internal ethylene, if meron na nag-start mag-produce ng ethylene, tanggal din yun. And then films are provided with macropores like punch holes or micropores, yung mga laser. And then in-package array of chemicals, yung mga adsorbents. And then ito mga developments, yung temperature compensating packages, nag-adapt yung permeability ng film depende sa temperature, no? Na paglalagyan mo. For example, galing sa low temperature, tapos ilalagay mo sa mas mataas na temperature. Mag-iiba yung permeability ng film, no? So, mag-maintain yung desired gas level. Or you can do nitrogen flushing or even carbon dioxide flushing or CO2 removal. Ito ang ginagawa mo ito. These are strawberries. No? Nagpa-flush ng carbon dioxide to increase the level of carbon dioxide within the pack. Ang purpose is to reduce the level to reduce microbial growth in botrytis rat. No? Kasi namamatay yung organism pag high CO2 in combination with low temperature during transport. So there are several methods. Yung controlled atmosphere naman, kakaiba to dun sa modified atmosphere packaging. The levels of oxygen and CO2 are precisely controlled, no? Either by nitrogen generator, tulad ng mga ito, no? Commercially available. Either add CO2 to remove CO2 pag masyadong tumataas. Either use lime, brine solution, yung molecular sieve, or you reduce the level of ethylene. You have so-called ethylene scrubbers or adsorbers. No? Sa mga refrigerated vans, no, for perishable crops, minsan may nilalagay ang shipping line na parang mat. No? Yeah, that is essentially an ethylene scrubber. So ito yung dito sa Pilipinas, hindi tayo nagko-controlled atmosphere. It is mainly modified atmosphere packaging. But in other countries, like in the US, in some countries in Europe, wherein they store pears, yung peras and apples, no, for more than 6 months, even a year pa nga yata. Ito yung mga CA facilities nila, no. Low temperature plus controlled atmosphere. So ito yung sa pears, ito yung effect ng controlled atmosphere plus low temp. Dito sa Pilipinas, we did a trial on controlled atmosphere ng mango in combination with low temperature. Ito yung 29 days at 12.5 degrees Celsius, 5% oxygen, 3 to 5% CO2. So, hindi totally controlled, ang paghinog ng mangga. So, we're gonna to transpire. Yun yung essentially sa respiration. Kailangan ma-control. No? So, pagdating naman sa transpiration, these are the factors that will affect the rate of transpiration. Internal or commodity factors, yung kanina diniscuss ko, surface area to volume ratio, the nature of the dermal system, yung diniscuss ko mga stomates, mga lenticels, etc. And then external factors, again, just like respiration temperature, the higher the temperature, the faster will be the rate of water loss. Relative humidity, alam niyo na yan, no? And then vapor pressure deficit, and then air movement, bakit ako may picture na ganito? This is a common method of transport. Meron kang top load, no? Ang ng hangin dyan, no? Ang bilis pa naman ng patakbo sa mga expressway. So, mataas ang wind velocity, ang bilis ng water loss. So, ano ba yung vapor pressure deficit? Yun naman ay tinitake up nyo sa psychrometry, no? So, parang simple lang, how much water vapor can be taken up by the air at given temperature and pressure. Di ba sabi ko, commodities have high moisture content, no? Halos 90 to 95% moisture yan. Yung outside environment mo, no? Pag masyadong mainit, tapos dry pa ang air. So, ang baba ng relative humidity. So, ang tendency of the water from the commodity is to come out. No? So, ang laki ng vapor pressure deficit between the commodity and the environment. No? So, that would lead to fast transpiration rate. No? Temperature, sinabi ko na. Air movement, yun nga, high air velocity, high water loss. Presence of injury, cuts, and abrasions or exit points for water vapor. It also stimulates ethylene production and entry for pathogen invasion. Kaya importante talaga ang handling with care. So how will you regulate the rate of transpiration? Again, temperature management. You increase the relative humidity of the storage environment and you regulate the rate of airflow within the environment. Hindi ko mo mababa ang temperature mo, ay marireduce mo na yung ang rate ng water loss, no? Kasi pag ang airflow, di ba, meron kang tulad dito, no, may fan sa loob. Pag abis ng airflow within the stack, no, mabilis ang magiging water loss ng commodity. And then, so itong una sa taas na tatlo ay techniques, no, to manipulate the environment. And then itong sa baba, this is directed doon sa commodity, modified atmosphere packaging. Kasi modified atmosphere packaging, napansin nyo, di ba, pag naka-enclose sa plastic bag, nakakaroon ng moisture condensation inside the bag. So mataas ang relative humidity within the microenvironment of the commodity and that will reduce water loss. Edible coating or waxing, no? Kasi tatakpan mo yung mga pores, yung mga stomates, mga ganyan, no? So you reduce also the rate of water loss and then you avoid mechanical injury or the avenues for the exit of water. So punta naman tayo sa decay. May question ako dito marami din naman na nakatama, no, na pag ba in-store mo sa low temperature, makokontrol mo na yung decay, no? Hindi, no? Hindi low temperature lang ang sagot, no? You can only arrest or retard the rate of disease development, no? Pakita ko ulit itong fact, itong triangle of interaction with regards to disease occurrence. So you have the environment, no? Pre-harvest environment, post-harvest environment, you have the virulent pathogen, and then you have a susceptible host. No? So how will you control decay? No? May mga diseases, maraming diseases essentially na incurred ang infection. The infection is incurred even during production. Very typical example is mango and papaya. So, importante ang pre-harvest crop protection. Yung mga post-harvest treatment to control decay, especially those diseases that are incurred during production, supplemental lang yon, tulad ng hot water treatment. Mas importante, makontrol mo muna siya during production, just like the case of mango. So, ano ba yung critical stage na nag-o-occur ang infection? Ito naman, alam mo ito, marami ng mga literatures on this. Kahit bulaklak pa lang yan, at saka nagpo-fruit set, susceptible na yan sa tinatawag na anthracnose. No? Kaya minsan, ang daming bulaklak, pero pag naulanan itong maraming bulaklak, ay parang ting-ting na. Nawala na yung mga bulaklak, konti na lang magpo-fruit. No? And then, as the fruit develops, no, pwede rin siyang ma-infect, no, noong anthracnose organism. Pero naandun lang siya just beneath the peel, yung mga spores. And then the disease will develop as the fruit ripens. So anong kailangan? Kailangan you need to monitor the conditions during growth. No? You monitor, uulan ba? So pag uulan ba? Mag-spray ako. Umulan ba? Anong i-spray ko? No? So, yung tinatawag na need-based fungicide spray program, no? Para makontrol ang decay. No? And then after harvest, you control infection by sanitizing the storage facilities, the containers, the harvesting tools. No? The storage room should be sanitized with chlorinated water. It can also be fumigated with formaldehyde. And then for the washing tanks, for the containers, they can be treated with borax, also with chlorinated water. And then careful handling para walang injuries. And then avoid favorable conditions for microbial development, high temperature, high relative humidity, and you cull infected fruits, no? Kasi makakahawa din yan sa mga katabi. Chemical treatments, no? Fungicides, no? Fungicides can be applied either by brush, spray, dip, doon sa mga bananas, no, na for export. Instead of itong ganitong spraying with fungicide, ito ay Cavendish bananas. Merong crown pad. The crown pad, these are several layers of absorbent paper na impregnated with fungicide. Nilalagay lang yan sa crown kasi the crown is where disease develops, no? And then ito naman, these are durian fruits being brushed with fungicide. Yung iba naman, they dip it or they soak it in fungicide solution. Now in the Philippines, no, restricted ang paggamit ng fungicide for post-harvest application. No, pero mga gumagamit. Doon sa mga commodities for export, the importing company should first approve the fungicides that you will use. For example, in bananas, papa-approvean mo pa yan sa company sa Japan, sa Korea, kung gagamit sila ng fungicides. No? Maraming concerns on fungicide usage, yung residues, yung food safety, kaya nga uso ng organic. The disease-causing organisms can develop resistance, and then how will you dispose these fungicides kasi they create environmental hazards kasi minsan matagal ma-degrade yung mga fungicides ay mali spelling ko. And then the physical method is hot water treatment, no? This is dipping the mangoes or the papayas in heated water, depende sa growing condition. 10 minutes, ito yung temperature pag mangoes are grown during the rainy season. You can reduce it to 5 minutes during the dry season. We tried this. We increase the temperature of the water, but we reduce the dipping time for only 1 minute. No, dapat very careful kasi pag tumaas masyadong temperature ng water ay sunog ang mangga. No? In Israel, they're using the hot water brush and spray method. That is for mango. No? Ito yung 20 seconds lamang nagro-roll yung mangga. No? Or nagpapas, hindi nagro-roll. So this is a batch type hot water treatment to control diseases in papaya. In papaya, the temperature is lower, but the dipping time is also 10 minutes. Now, hot water treatment is a very good supplement to low temperature storage to control decay. You can also delay symptom appearance or control decay by delaying symptom appearance. No? Low temperature storage, it only delays ripening. No? Thereby delaying symptom appearance. Pero pag inilabas mo na yung mangga at hindi maganda ang pre-harvest management, wala kang hot water treatment, then biglang labas ang diseases niyan pag in-expose mo na sa higher temperature. And then atmosphere modification, yung pinakita ko kanina, they flush the pack of strawberries with high carbon dioxide to control decay due to this fungus. And then you can also intensify the natural defense mechanism of the host kasi ito yung genetic makeup ng commodity. There are natural barriers to infection. These are the some of the chemical substances present. Itong wax nasa pilyan. No? Pag waxy, mahirap ng pasukin ng organisms. Itong suberin, parang ito yung cork area, no? Corky tissues. Essentially, ito ay sa mga root crops, no? It forms a corky layer. The disease-causing microorganism will find it hard to penetrate the root crop. And then application of resistance elicitors. These are some of the chemical treatments. Ang iba, high CO2 is a chemical elicitor. Okay, so how do we extend the post-harvest life? It's not only cold storage, no? It's not conserve the food and water by temperature management, because you reduce the rate of respiration and transpiration. You harvest at recommended maturity. Importante yan. The more mature the commodity, the more food reserves it has. You protect the commodity against ethylene and then handle with tender, loving care. Minimize post-harvest diseases through hygiene and sanitation, culling of infected produce, and application of approved chemicals yung tinatawag na generally regarded as safe chemicals like the use of alum or tawas in the case of cabbage to control soft rot in cabbage and lettuce. Again, handled with tender loving care, and then avoid premature senescence, yung eventual death. Kasi nyo, lagi may TLC dyan, no? Yan yung pinaka-cheapest method of extending the post-harvest life. And lastly, again, temperature management. So that's all. Remember that the quality of harvested produce can only be maintained. It can no longer be improved, or if there are any improvements, it's just little improvement. Okay, so thank you, and that ends my presentation.